When creating our product, which aimed to promote a comedy drama, we knew that there were certain conventions we had to follow, both within the industry and genre. These conventions are what made our products recognizable as a promotional package, as it replicated industry standards. We saw the repeated use of industry logos to show the production companies behind the film. This gives the audience an awareness of the production value and if the film is independent or mainstream, as it can hint at the budget and industries backing the film. Our logo works because it captures the audience's attention. The glitch effect also fits in with the aesthetic of the film. Through the use of establishing shots, we were able to show the location and hint at the environment. This is common of lots of trailers and was prevalent in our product research. I felt these shots were important because of the message of our film about gentrification of these buildings and how it affects those living there, as film can be the most effective social commentary and highlight issues not talked enough about. We noticed how in a lot of trailers there was an exposition section which hinted at narrative and then a fast-paced build-up that showed the characters doing actions, with a mini conclusion and title slate. We changed this structure slightly by adding an exposition, then character introductions, followed by more exposition, then a montage, leading to the climax of the title and release date. This created a realistic, believable narrative that showed and hinted just enough at the story for the audience to stay intrigued. We worked with different variations, but found through audience research that this structure worked better as it made the story clearer. It is common of comedies and action films to include a montage towards the end of the trailer, as seen in Attack the Block and Brotherhood. These films specifically fit with our genre and the tone, and therefore we wanted to replicate that feel. The montage was intended to give a light-hearted feel and showed the characters trying to be spies, hinting at the action. I believe this worked very well with the grime soundtrack, as created a rhythm and therefore a hype. Spy comedies are known for their stunts and huge effects, quite often with exotic locations and gadgets. We knew that this would not be possible due to our limited budget and time period. We also knew that making an independent film would mean that it wouldn't have the same access as large mainstream spy films such as Spy and Kingsman. So we focused on the inept nature of the spies and their limited resources due to their environment, making this limitation comedic but also contribute to the narrative by being an aspect which helps the group learn teamwork and reach their full potential, furthering the moral of our story. We replicated the idea in ensemble to achieve a comedic dynamic, such as Attack the Block and Anotherhood. This means the characters often feed off each other, creating a repertoire and banter. This is very common of both teen dramas and comedies such as Perks of Wallflower and Mean Girls. We also noticed that it was common of teen dramas to have a fight with authority figures, playing into the archetype of the evil step-parent shown through Gabs' stepdad being the only one campaigning to get rid of the estate. This was similar to stories such as Cinderella Story or Parent Trap. We followed this archetype because it presented a clear antagonist. A lot of independent film posters include reviews and stars. We found this was common as it showed the critical acclaim of a film. We decided to replicate this idea, using quotes from the film magazines to promote the acclaim of the film. We made sure to translate the genre clearly in the poster. We felt this was done by the cartoon estate, which adds to the playful nature of the comedy. This is done on the Anotherhood poster and the comic book aspect seen in Scott Pilgrim, which follows the same themes and plays on action film stereotypes, which is similar to our film. Also similar to Anotherhood, the characters and comedic nature were shown through the expressions, each revealing their individual personality. The billing block is very typical of the poster, and we made sure to include all the relevant information, such as director, producer, and actors. We also made sure to include social media hashtags in the posters and trailers, replicating what was seen in the Brotherhood, because we are aware of the importance of social media to our target audience and the promotional potential. We produced an independent magazine, as we found it gave us more creative freedom to differ from typical magazine conventions. We still chose one cast member of the ensemble, as we found that was common, one actor being chosen to promote the film. We closely followed the format of Little White Lies through our minimalistic style for the magazine .mov, which is a video file from which films are saved. It was important to show the magazine was about creators, focusing on the young creatives in the industry, such as magazines like ID and Dazed. We needed to keep it relevant to our target audience, so made the cover line that would appeal to our audience. These conventions were very important in producing our promotional package, as it built a framework from what we needed to be included, both from industry conventions and genre conventions. We knew we needed to subvert, but also follow these guidelines to produce the best trailer, magazine, and poster possible that would represent our message in the best way. At the beginning of pre-production, we had decided on genre and environment of the trailer. We knew our audience would mainly be South London teenagers, and therefore wanted to cater to their interests. First, looking at film and TV shows which represented estate environments, using these as examples for our focus group. We used the trailer for Brotherhood, Attack the Block, Sket, and Another Hood during the focus group. We found mainly that these trailers didn't represent the real life of teenagers. Another Hood, the only one accurately representing the ridiculous comedic nature of the environment and the type of characters that can be found. Kenneth being the recognizable stereotype of someone trying too hard, but in fact is just a bit of a wimp. From this, we gathered that representation of the characters was really important. We needed to look at the stereotypes around us and replicate them to make authentic, relatable archetypes. We also learnt that the audience didn't like the idea of angry characters that constantly perpetrated violence, as it created a negative stereotype of the area. Attack the Block was the most liked trailer. It had a relatable cast, funny script, and an interesting and unexpected plot. Aliens, not something explored a lot within these types of films. From this, we could analyze that these aspects were most important to our audience. Therefore, we worked on a good group dynamic that was punctuated with comedy, but had a different plot to conventional estate films. Therefore, the idea of mixing a spy comedy that was with the environment developed. As well as a focus group, we used a questionnaire on SurveyMonkey and distributed on Snapchat. This questionnaire confirmed the age of our audience as young adults, so we definitely needed to appeal to a young adult audience. Our audience mainly listened to mainstream pop music, but due to the nature of our product, we decided to ignore this and focus on grime, trap, and beats, which was liked by 13% of our audience, only 2% less than pop. We had a larger female audience, so it made sense to have a female as the leader of our ensemble, making the two females in the group stronger, more prevalent characters. The questionnaire also gave us a good insight into the magazine design preference, our audience liking the intriguing and unique design of the independent magazine. This gave us hints as to, when doing an independent magazine, as how the audience were looking for something different that challenges the mainstream magazine cover. During the audience feedback of our rough cut, people found it really hard to follow the plot of the trailer. The story was unclear and there was too much ambiguity around the conflict. To resolve this, we had to work on sequencing and reshoots, rewriting the voiceover and presenting the characters clearer. The male characters in the ensemble were seen to fade into the background, therefore we had to work on defining their personalities and giving them more screen time. I was really worried about the comedy of the trailer, being only because we were familiar with the cast. But the audience responded well to the comedy, commenting on the script and the visual aesthetic, creating a light-hearted atmosphere. During the final cut, we made sure to accentuate these features and make sure that the execution of the script was the best it could be. Our final project was generally well received. We used YouTube comments to gather data and distributed the trailer on social media, asking people to comment. Generally, people thought the storyline was clear and the issues dealt with were really topical and relevant to today's society. People were able to gather that the film was about gentrification and the teenagers protecting their home. I therefore think that resequencing worked well and highlighted the relevant topical matters. It focuses on the issues at play and deals lightheartedly with a subject relevant to all those living in estates and state-controlled homes. The audience seemed to really understand the characters, as they represented real-life cliches that our audience saw every day in their local environment. I was proud that we didn't become too satirical and not conform to the mainstream stereotypes such as the mean girl, the loner kid, the goth, and so on, instead focusing on the individuals we saw around us. This creates a really niche audience, but works well for an independent film. Most people liked the magazine cover, saying it was creative and clearly was independent. However, her gaze was quite confrontational, and that created an instant dislike for the character when out of context. I therefore would have chosen to present my character differently, maybe by creating a sketch or using Photoshop to manipulate the image, or reshooting the character in a different position and stature. Our poster was well received. However, the audience thought the tagline was cheesy and could go out of fashion. We couldn't really help that, but could maybe have looked at more upcoming popular phrases. They thought the characters were well represented within the poster, however. The character at the top was out of focus and seemed distant. This was due to scheduling issues and the actor's distance from the rest of the cast, meaning he was later photoshopped in. I would have tried to be more organized so that the cast could be photographed together. The colors of the estate were very dull for a comedy poster, so I would have liked to have experimented more with color and tone. I think playing with the color would have added to the light-hearted tone of the film, therefore relating more to the comedy genre. Overall, our audience research was vital in guiding us to ideas and developing a product that produced what the audience would like to see. I learned the importance of the later stages of audience research and why that needs to be thorough, as it would help us develop our product, making it the best it could possibly be. Most of our early communication was done through verbal communication. Though we quickly set up a Snapchat group, most of our brainstorming and sharing of ideas would be done there. It meant that we could speak at all times. However, often became difficult to keep up a conversation, as often messages would be read but not replied to. This meant that a lot of the conversations were one-sided, and as a group we weren't able to develop ideas as well as hoped. However, we kept this method of communication up the whole time, as Snapchat was easily accessible. We mainly used YouTube to do trailer research. This meant we had access to a plethora of research material, which really helped us define what we enjoyed and the different conventions of mainstream and independent. It also gave us great access to public opinion due to the comment section, meaning we were able to gather what was popular at the time. However, we did have to spend a lot of time searching for the relevant material, as there is so much access to information that it often did not seem relevant or the best use of a resource. I used screenwriting software called Keltext to write the script. It helped format the script in the correct way and develop scenes. Once writing a script for the trailer, it became difficult in post-production to separate and create a trailer that wasn't completely narrative-based or replicated an opening, but instead was snappy and seemed to jump between time and place. This struggle is still present in the trailer, but I felt we overcame this really well, such that we had to be careful not to just tell the story, but instead hint at it and show what looked like different points within the film. For audience research, we did a focus group and a survey. The software used in the focus group I will talk about later. We used SurveyMonkey to gather data for our audience, distributing on social media so it had a wider reach. SurveyMonkey was so helpful because it meant that all our data was cultivated and analyzed in one place, making the data easier to read and more efficient. By using social media to distribute the questionnaire, however, meant that we had a skewed answer as we only reached a certain audience, usually young people who we knew, therefore mainly from London and between 15 to 24. We were also only able to receive 100 replies, as that was the amount we could collect within the SurveyMonkey's free trial. During production, we used various pieces of equipment. Everything was filmed on the Canon D70. Everything ran smoothly, the only issue being with battery and storage. We quickly ran out of both and had to keep changing cards and changing batteries, which caused significant time delays. We kept the camera on autofocus, and then we were able to concentrate on composition and change the focus only when needed. We as a group could have focused more on the camera movement, however felt we experimented well with angles, such as low shots of Gabs and close-ups within the montage. We aimed to use the GoPro to do action running and jump shots, but ran out of time and struggled with the GoPro itself. I felt this would have added to our trailer's action vibe immensely, but we decided to focus more on getting the narrative across, as that was something we struggled with. For sound, we used the Zoom VH1. However, due to the intense wind and due to the filming in an estate, there was an intense amount of atmospheric sound, and we ended up using mostly sound from the camera or re-recordings. The camera sound was often better because it was perfectly synced and was in a better position to record than the VH1. I think we would have done less outdoor shots as the weather was a huge problem. We also should have highlighted important lines and made them clearer by recording better and focusing on pronunciation. The backing tracks were also incoherent and far too loud, so we found multiple tracks and faded them and worked on volume. We then focused on syncing OK sound from the camera recordings and syncing them with the backing track, rewriting and re-recording the voiceover so that it expressed more plot and the tone of the film. We also ended up using a Mac laptop to create a vlog aesthetic when recording the beginning of the trailer, therefore instantly creating a personal connection. Also, because of our audience's age, recording oneself is continuously used and very common due to YouTube bloggers, adding to the social media aspect. Later, in post-production, I used After Effects to create a VHS effect to over-exaggerate the home recording effect. This became a tedious process, as I had to repeat the process several times due to technical difficulties and had to tone down a lot of the effects. However, I found that the end results were subtle but effective. Most of the After Effects work, such as titles, freeze frames, and production logos, were techniques we developed by watching YouTube tutorials. It became a good tool for inspiration and helped further our ideas and techniques. However, I found that a lot of our outcomes became similar to the other groups as we were using the same sources, which just meant that we had to carefully select our material and tutorials. Before starting, we made sure to organize all the footage by scenes and carefully pick the best footage. We did all the sequencing on Premiere Pro, and because of previous organization, it was really simple to keep it all in one place. We hardly had any technical problems except for misplaced files which had been produced later, such as freeze frames, which we had to transfer from one computer to the other, and missing media such as titles, but these were very easy to overcome once we properly organized our footage again. In making the poster and magazine, I used Photoshop. Due to previous experience, it was really easy managing layers and working with different outputs. Originally, we were using an image from the trailer, however found the lighting was off and didn't have the same effect we desired, so instead retook the shot. The cartoon of Gabs from our magazine was done on a website called Cartoon Maker. I would have liked to have created a cartoon on Photoshop, but due to limited time had to settle, which meant that her expression had more attitude than desire, and instead of being comical, she seemed quite standoffish. With Photoshop, we could have made the lines less heavy, and therefore her features would be softer, therefore her gaze could be expressed better. For the duration of this task, we had to use a lot of technologies and cross-medias to develop and express our ideas. This was important, but due to technical failure, could become time-consuming and not deliver the best results. These technical struggles were important in the development of our skills. Moreover, the plethora of digital technologies and tutorials allowed us to access skills and content that would otherwise be unavailable, meaning that we can create effects and content that would usually only be available to heavily resourced professionals. A combination of these things meant that we produced the product I am proud of.